On this harvest moon.
Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Hey guys, I hope you liked my double introduction there. Neil Young, baby, singing Harvest Moon, and he's singing about a harvest moon that is a full moon. And guess what? Today is a harvest moon, full moon, Friday the 13th, baby. And oh my gosh, the next one that's going to happen like this, 30 years from now. So go outside and look at the moon while you can. Now, for some of you in other parts of the world, and then in this part of the world, in the United States, all the way down through South America, we all have a full moon right now. But some of you aren't going to have a full moon until the 14th, which is tomorrow. But this is the only time the harvest moon is going to be a full moon on Friday the 13th for 30 more years. So pretty cool. I'm going to get right into the normal news, and then we're going to go into why people think Friday the 13th is so darned spooky. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment. Okay, Schumann resonance from Italy today, disclosurenews.it, states, they only did one report today. Oh, wait a minute, I've got to redo. They did a second report from yesterday. And actually last night, the secondary 2130 report, they reported that it went to 38 hertz. And there's a continuous background activity. And one of the people who does YouTube channels describe this as pillars of white light. And there's a lot of blips where it's just a straight line. I'm looking at it right now, and I see in the past 24 hours, I see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Well, roughly about 13 or 14 full up and down straight white lines. I don't know what that really means, pillars of light, but crazy stuff. Okay. Now, actually it just doesn't say. I guess this is the today report. It says the 12th. I think that I know what they did. They're afraid of the number 13. Oh, unbelievable. It's like I like refresh the page like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, how come it says 12 at 2130? Says the activity that started yesterday at 18 UTC lasted for 5 hours until 23 UTC time. It has been a powerful movement, even if the maximum peak was 38 hertz. For the rest of the day, there was a continuous slight background activity. Schumann resonance today for California started off at midnight at 109 hertz frequency. By 4 a.m., that was 112 hertz frequency. Starting at midnight in Hofuf in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the hertz frequency was 96 at midnight, but went all the way up to 103 at 4 a.m. In Lithuania, it started off at 140 hertz frequency at midnight and went by 4 a.m. to 144. Well, we all know that number, don't we? 144, as in 144,000. Okay. Alberta, Canada has always been the one to watch. It's always been the front runner in all of this. And today's no different. It doesn't surprise me that it was 256 hertz frequency on the Schumann resonance scale at midnight. And it went to 258 for a little bit. It went back down to 256 at 4 a.m. Now in Northland, New Zealand, they started off midnight at 77. And by 4 a.m. they went up to 80. And just every day since August 22nd, Hulului, South Africa, has still been a flatliner at 0. I don't know what's going on with these guys, but I think their equipment is shut off. Lesson 95 in A Course in Miracles today is this: I am one self, united with my Creator. I am one self, united with my Creator. I'm going to read one little paragraph here, which I thought was kind of hilarious, the way that it's worded. You see yourself as a ridiculous parody on God's creation. Weak, vicious, ugly, and sinful, miserable, and beset with pain. Such is your version of yourself, a self divided into many warring parts, separate from God, and tenuously held together by its erratic and capricious maker to which you pray. It doesn't hear your prayers, for it's deaf. And it does not see the oneness in you, for it is blind. It does not understand that you're the Son of God, for it's senseless and understands nothing. That's pretty much it in a nutshell, right? It's how we kind of all view ourselves at one point or another. I keep praying and praying and praying, and God's not answering He's not answering me. Oh my gosh. God must not love me. He loves everyone else on the planet, but just not me. Have you guys ever fallen into that trap? It's a trap because you know what? You are ultimately perfect and powerful. One way you could say is, I am one self. Another way to say this lesson today is, I am one self, united with my Creator, at one with every aspect of creation, and limitless in power and in peace. Because to be honest, that is the real truth. You are one self with me, united with our Creator in this self. I honor you because of what I am and what He is, who loves us both as one. I mean, this is pretty powerful stuff, actually. This is a powerful lesson. If you want to check it out, go download one of the apps that say A Course in Miracles. They're all free, and a lot of them will read out loud to you. And you can also go to acim.org. It's the Foundation for Inner Peace, who originally published this book in the first place. And again, the lesson 95 today, the main idea is, I am one self, united with my Creator. All right, we are 98 on the Ascension Symptoms Scale today, and yesterday we were at 99. I can't remember if I mentioned or not. If I forget to mention it, it's still always in the show's description, along with my cannabis oil, my CBD oil business. If you want to go buy the highest quality on the market right now in cannabis oil, they did take all of the vaping products off the market because of some of the reports coming in about some teenagers whose lungs started to collapse because they were vaping too much. So even though there's never been an issue ever with CBD oil being vaped, they just thought it'd be better to be on the safe side. So the CEO of the company, CTFO, which stands for Change the Future Outcome, they have decided to just go ahead and just delete it from the line just to be safe. But all of the other high quality products, the sunscreen, the moisturizer, the anti-pain, anti-inflammatory products, they're also on the market. And in my description, if you're looking for this on YouTube, the description somehow is being cut off by Spreaker. It's something I probably need to take up with them because they're one of my distributors. But if you go to anchor.fm/metaphysical, you will get the full link to that. And it's CBD for metaphysical souls. So it's ctfo.com/CBD for metaphysical souls with an S at the end. Let's see what else. I keep thinking there was something, one other thing. before I get into the stuff. Actually, there wasn't. Yeah. Well, one quick, on a personal note, I started with Neil Young's Harvest Moon because I'm going to try to get through the story without crying. I was thinking about it earlier, and I told my son, and I got a little weepy. My husband, when my kids were very little, he loved this song, and he learned how to play it on his guitar and sing this tune, Harvest Moon by Neil Young. And it became one of our favorite songs. And he said, the song reminds me of you because you're always so happy, and you're always laughing, and you're always singing and dancing around the house because I know you're so in love with me, and you love our life, and you love our kids, and it's how I feel about you too. And I wanted to learn the song, to always remind us of this love that we feel, this deep, profound, powerful love that we felt every day. And so he would sing it for me, and we were going to go on a road trip to New Mexico, and he spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours making this playlist. He had bought a device that would plug into the car lighter or the bus lighter, no matter what we were going to use. And so we would always have this wonderful playlist. And he put that song, he snuck it in and didn't tell me. And we were driving down the road, and he started singing it, and he put his hand in my hand when he sang the part, I'm still in love with you. And we both started crying because we were so in love. I mean, like every day was like we just started dating for like 11 years. We were together 13 years. The last 2 years were pretty crap, but he had brain cancer and we didn't know. So anyway, that's why like that song is like super meaningful for me. But in the lyrics of the song, he says the words full moon and harvest moon. And it's like that, a full moon on Friday the 13th only happens on average every 20 years. So you guys, this is like a super fortuitous, rare moment. But Friday the 13th has not always been, throughout history, has not always been something that people enjoy. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about why. What does it mean? Now, first of all, Friday is a day that you can worship the goddess Venus, which is good. She is the goddess of love and sexuality and sensuality and emotional intelligence. And she relates to Freytag or Frigg in the Norse. She is a goddess in the Nordic traditions. And that's where we get the name Friday. Well, the establishment in the Catholic Church got really, they got a little bit upset because, why should a woman rule a whole day, God forbid? And so they wanted to take the patriarchy back from the female rule, I guess. And so they claimed that Fridays were kind of evil. They're the days, in which a lot of bad crap happened. Well, people also have triskaidekaphobia, and triskaidekaphobia means fear of the number 13. Well, there's another word that combines the fear of Friday with the fear of the number 13, and I'm going to try to repeat this. I can't even say this again. Paraskevidecatriophobia. Paraskevidecatriophobia. That's a really hard word to say. But this is fear of Friday the 13th. But where does this come from? Why are people so freaked out randomly by the number 13, right? Well, Jesus had 12 followers. That made Jesus the number 13. So for me, I feel like that's a lucky number. But on the day of the Last Supper, people don't think it was so much a lucky thing because the last one to arrive at the party was the first one to sell Jesus out, and that was Judas with the Judas kiss. He kissed Jesus, and that was the end. And basically, well, we all know what happened after that. So according to Brain Stuff YouTube channel, this is what they had to say about all this. By the way, and Friday also is a good day, and especially Friday the 13th, because the number 13 is related to death, and the goddess of death is Hecate. So this is a very, very good day if you are in the process of transforming your life, fixing and changing things, and you've had a death to your old life and you're getting a rebirth to your new life. Goddess Hecate is she's one powerful, witch. And she is not for the weak or the faint of heart to work with, but if you feel strong enough, today would be a really excellent day to work with Goddess Hecate in changing and transforming every aspect of your life. And she can be contacted in regards to love relationships, sexual relationships, any kind of relationships, as well as just the change and transformation. And if you've gone through heavy duty transformations as well as deaths in the family, she's another goddess that will come and console you and help and comfort you. But she doesn't put up with wimps, so you got to be a very strong human being to do any magic related to Goddess Hecate. All right, so let's get into this. Where does the fear of the Friday the 13th come from? Well, 8%. Did you know that 8% of the people in the United States are terrified of Friday the 13th? Isn't that weird? Today is my friend Helen's birthday. So to Helen, if you are listening, happy birthday. I'd never forget your birthday. How could I? I believe she was born on a Friday the 13th, and today's Friday the 13th. She always said the 13th has always been her lucky day. Friday the 13th has always been her lucky day. And September 13th is her birthday. So happy birthday, Helen. I love my Virgo people. She is a Virgo person just like me. All right. So Fridays have been vilified, as has the number 13. So this combination of the fear has been, throughout history, it's like ramping up every time something bad happens on this day. In Christian theology, the 13th person to arrive to the Last Supper was Judas, and Jesus was crucified on a Friday. And it has been said he was crucified on a Friday the 13th, but we're not sure about that. Obviously, it's been over 2,000 years, so who the hell knows? It is believed that Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit on a Friday. Friday, goddess Venus, goddess of sex, and ate the forbidden fruit. What could that mean? Hey, Yoka. So, the great flood happened in our beloved Noah. He set sail in his giant ark full of every kind of animal on earth on a Friday. Now, because of all of this stuff that's happened on a Friday, Christians have been afraid to start anything new on a Friday. That includes trips or projects or opening businesses. Ships were not allowed to set sail on Friday. They never ever set sail on a Friday because of the fear of what Fridays have brought in the past. And the number 13 also, that's also a bad one for sailors. Sailors are very, very, very superstitious folks. And so to combat this nonsense, of course, the British Navy in the 1700s thought it's time to put away with this nonsense, stop the fear, and they decided to commission a British Navy ship called the HMS Friday. They selected a crew on a Friday. They launched the ship on a Friday. What was the captain's name? Oh, of course, his name was James Friday. Yeah. Guess what happened to the ship, guys? You'd want me to say not a damn thing, and it's just all superstition. I can't say that, guys. It disappeared, and they never heard from that ship again or any of the crew members. Completely disappeared at sea. Oh, maybe there's something to it. Okay, Nordic mythology. There was a feast to the god Baldur in the Nordic mythology, in this story. And, well, Loki, that crazy god who is known for stealing fire and doing practical jokes, I guess he was invited to the party and got very angry. And so he showed up, crashing the party, which was on a Friday. And when he crashed the party, that brought the grand total of people there to number 13. And then he killed Baldur, and in Nordic history and mythology, that became a very unlucky day because one of their most beloved gods was murdered by the very impetuous Loki, who was the 13th guest to arrive. Friday the 13th in the Middle Ages also was known as a very inauspicious time, especially in 1306, when a lot of the Knights Templar, who are the guardians of the cup of Christ, the cup that Christ drank from during the Last Supper and possibly again at the crucifixion while he was up on the cross, they allowed him to drink from a cup, and they believe that that is the Holy Grail, the cup of Christ. And the Knights Templar were in charge of this, and they were rounded up in France by King Philip and burned at the stake on Friday the 13th in the year 1306. So a lot of people really have a lot of heebie-jeebie feelings as it comes to Friday the 13th. I'm a Knights Templar myself. I actually joined one of the orders many, many years ago, which then gave my children also the title of being Knights Templar. And to be honest, They do have some secrets of Jesus, and they're another mystery school, the one I joined anyway, and they do hold some secrets of Christ, and it's very, very interesting. And I haven't really told you any of their secrets, though, bound by sworn duty and all that. And men and women are allowed to be Knights Templar in these days, so it's pretty cool. So, okay, there's a lot of things about the number 13 that you may not be aware of. Most buildings born or built, created in North America, do not have a 13th floor. No, the elevators only go up to 12 and then they skip to 14. Well, 14 is technically the 13th floor, but it doesn't carry the energy or the weight of the death card number of 13. And did you know that in these three airlines, Ryanair, Continental, and Air France. Ryanair I can see because, well, Irish people, we all tend to be pretty superstitious lot anyway, but there is no row 13. There is no row 13 on these three, on all of the airplanes for these three airlines, Air France, Continental, and Ryanair. Also, did you know that around the world, there is no 13th gate in most airports? I didn't know that either. Isn't that weird? Now, there's even more. Even more. 13 steps. 13 steps to the gallows before you get hung for any crime. Did you know that? You have to walk up 13, the number related to death, before they put you to death for a criminal offense that is worthy of hanging. And did you know that most people were hung on a Friday, and most townsfolk, well, TV didn't exist. No one had computer, internet, or Netflix. And so what's the entertainment this week? Oh, well, hey, Joe or Billy Bob is getting hung. All right, let's go and guess we might as well watch one of our fellow men get hung today. So, hey, that's something to do on a Friday. And did you know and then afterwards they would get drunk, and the next day they would be hung over after drinking so much. Hung. Okay, that's where being hung over, where that phrase came from. Creepy. So very creepy. Now, Apollo 13 was on a mission to land on the moon, and they never made it because 13 was their mission number. After this, NASA actually hung up the number 13, and I don't believe they've ever used it since. They even had hesitation in using it in the first place, but they sent men out into space and oh God, guys, the oxygen tank exploded. There was a whole movie with Tom Hanks about it. Watch the movie if you get a chance. It's excellent. Scary as hell. Don't watch it alone. But the oxygen tank exploded. They had to return. They barely returned with their lives. Barely returned with their lives. So, number 13 is not actually scary to every culture. In fact, in China, it's related to the lunar cycles, menstrual cycles of women. And so it's considered a very auspicious and good luck number. In Egypt, lucky number 13. Also to the Sikh and the Punjabi peoples, 13 is a very auspicious and lucky number. Okay. Also, have you ever heard of a baker's dozen? When you order a dozen donuts and you get a baker's dozen, that's a woohoo free one, which makes 12 into 13. It's also representative of Christ and his followers. So, I mean, for some people, it's not always a bad number. Also, on the first flag that we ever had in the United States, we had 13 colonies. And so on our flag, we had 13 stars and 13 stripes. So it used to be a very, very lucky number way back in the day. Did you know that Columbus actually landed in the quote-unquote New World that he thought he discovered? How do you discover a land full of people that were already there? What hubris that dickhead had. But anyway, he landed on October 13th. Did you know that? Then they changed that to October 12th because of all the other crap I just mentioned that makes people all up in arms and totally scared out of their damn wits over 13. So they just changed it. Columbus Day is October 12th. I myself, as a Native American person, partially Native American person, I don't celebrate the day that guy landed and ruined the lives for millions upon millions of people over 2 continents. So I don't like him. Don't like him one bit. All right, guys, I am going to tell you 20 brand new Mandela effects. Not only is this a full moon Friday and a 13 Friday the 13th, this is also Freaky Friday. And for Freaky Friday, we are going to go over 20 brand new Mandela effects. So out of all of them, I've been able to disprove one of them. But the rest of them, I can't. And a lot of them are just having me scratching my head. I wanted to say one announcement. This is very, very important. If you like ghost stories, I am one of the little kids. And as soon as I said ghost story, he's knocking on my door. Oh, that was so great timing, kid. One of my neighbors. Sometimes he runs up and knocks on my door. Woo, nice and spooky. So if you like ghost stories, Art Bell always did a thing every year on Halloween. Instead of Coast to Coast AM, he made it Ghost to Ghost AM. And I used to stay up all night with my kids and my husband. We would have all the lights off, and we would go trick-or-treating first. So the only noise you would hear was the sounds of the callers calling in with their scary, spooky ghost stories and the candy wrappers in our sticky fingers as we ate candy and popcorn and drank our hot chocolate with all the lights off except for one candle. And that's how we spent every single Halloween together when my kids were little. So, in honor of Art Bell, I have decided on Friday the 13th, on Freaky Friday, and during this full harvest moon, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start calling you guys out. I want to know your spooky, creepy, weird ghost stories, and I'm going to read them on the air on Halloween. That will be what we do this year for my first Halloween for Metaphysical Ghost Speak. I can't wait. So please send me as many ghost stories and don't be shy. If you have 2 or 3 ghost stories, send them in because I want to hear them. And I know what? Everybody else wants to hear them too. So I want you guys make a note of it, write it down, and type out all your ghost stories. If you want to tell them, send them to me on anchor.fm/metaphysical. And in your creepiest voice, please send them and tell us the stories. We would love to hear your voice. And I want to give you guys a platform to allow your ghost stories to be heard. I love it so much. It's one of my favorite things. Oh my God. You know what? Right. I look up, and one of the creepiest places I've ever been to in my life is Isla Amantani in Peru, in the center of Lake Titicaca, in the icy waters of Lake Titicaca, which borders on Bolivia with snow-capped mountains. I'm looking at this island. It looks like a giant skull. I kid you not. This is so freaky. In fact, I could see where my friend's house is, where I stayed there. I stayed there for a weekend, and I'm looking at it right now. I see where we landed. I see this long way. We went all the way up to the top of this mountain. I could see where my kids went. They went to the top of the mountain. I didn't go all the way, but I went halfway up, and that's where we spent the night at 10,000 plus feet above sea level. I would like walk one step and couldn't breathe. I've never seen an aerial drone picture of Isla Amantani. That was one of the creepiest frickin' places I've ever been in my whole life. Cold as hell. And the women, because it's their culture, wear these heavy skirts and bare legs, and it's cold as hell. Like, you could freeze to death cold there. It's so freaking cold. In the middle of the largest lake at the highest elevation on Earth. It's worth it. If you ever go to Peru, go to Isla Amantani. It is worth it. It is crazy. It is creepy. The people are very sweet, but it's a really creepy place. So right when I'm saying the words creepy and spooky and scary, and I look up and Isla Amantani is on my I Am Worthy Chromecast. All right. Send me your ghost stories for Metaphysical Ghost Speak coming up in October on the 31st is when I need them due by the 30th though, so I can start compiling them. All right, guys, I can take a quick break, and when I come back, it's time for the Mandela Effect for Freaky Friday. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's high time you did. It is the absolute easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's absolutely free. Second of all, they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. You guys have known that I've been doing this for 8 months using the Anchor.fm app right on my cell phone, and I have done it everywhere, right? I have recorded this in my living room, my bedroom, little cafes in Quito, Ecuador, all over Cuenca. It's so absolutely easy to make your podcast, and editing is just a snap. Anchor also will distribute your podcast for you, and it took me about 2.5 months to become syndicated, and now I'm available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more, and so can you. You can make money from your podcast also, and there's no minimum requirement. You get paid from your very first listener. It is everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So please, if you are interested in making a podcast of your very own, do not hesitate to start with Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Do you ever wish you could look into the next chapter in your book of life and see what's coming next? What does the universe have in store for you? I can help you with that. I will give you a Celtic cross reading, which is 10 cards, or you can ask me 3 questions, and I use 3 cards per question. So that's 9 cards, or I can channel your higher guidance, or maybe God directly for you. Maybe you want to talk to your dear departed Aunt Edna, because maybe you have a few questions and she was the smartest person you knew. If your deceased relatives are available or your ascended masters, I can channel them for you personally. Let me have 1 hour to show you the future in your next chapter of your book of life. Readings are $75, and it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to complete. And for this price, you will also be hooked up to the healing grid around the planet for free, which means yours truly, me, I will be giving you Reiki 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. All you have to do is let me know. metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com, and we will explore your future together. All right, guys, the Mandela effect is a really freaky thing. So it's a good thing we're doing it on Freaky Friday. I had one other Mandela effect show, but the Mandela effects we're going to discuss tonight are all brand new ones. And what is really freaky about the Mandela effect, well, where it came from originally, okay, is back in the 80s, Nelson Mandela was running for president. And in my memory, it's not, I wasn't too terribly involved in South African politics, but what I remember happening is that Nelson Mandela was a really inspirational, well-loved guy around the world. Everybody loves him. In fact, I meet people here in Cuenca whose names are Nelson after him, okay? Because he was a very special, powerful, spiritual leader. He's a light worker. So what I remember is that in the 80s, he was running to be president, and the opposing party ended up jailing him and putting him in jail for like 20 years or 26 years or something insane, and that was his jail sentence, and he died in prison. And I remember him dying sometime in the 90s. I remember being extremely upset over it, crying over it, being depressed for a few weeks over it, like, what a waste of a good man, right? I remember being completely heartbroken, and it just wrenched me to the core that he died in prison. It just really angered me. But I was happy when Winnie Mandela, his wife, ended up running for president and eventually, years later, winning. And then I was very disappointed when she was put in prison for like embezzlement and fraud, and I never knew if the charges were real or not. But I remember feeling disappointed in her. Imagine my surprise and how freaky it was to hear that Nelson Mandela just died a couple years ago after having been a beloved South African president for like 26 years or something. And I'm like, wait a minute. I've hopped a timeline because that's not at all how I remember the history of it. Why would I mourn the loss of somebody who's still very much alive? Makes you think. Well, what's really weird is half of the people remember it the way it supposedly happened, and half the people remember it the way I remember it, the way I thought it happened. And there you have it. That was the first Mandela effect that we all did. Like, half the world believes one thing, half the world believes another thing. That was the first Mandela effect. Was about Nelson Mandela. Well, there's been since many not Nelson Mandela effects, I'm sorry, meltdown. There's been a lot of Mandela effects that people have started to notice. Like, for example, was there 4 people in the car or 6 people in the car when President Kennedy, JFK, was shot in Dallas, Texas from a grassy knoll, or from the building across the street from a grassy knoll? Very weird, right? So some people remember there were only 4 people in the car. I remember 4 people in the car. Well, I mean, I wasn't alive then, but I remember seeing the footage when I was in high school, and there was only 4 people in the car. And now they're saying there was 6 people in the car. And I have gone on YouTube and I've seen movies in which there were 6 people in the car, and I've seen footage where there were 4 people in the car. And what's really freaky is you could go to Dallas and take two different tours, and one of them will say this is an exact replica of the car where JFK was shot, and it is a 2-door car. And you can go down the street and there's a guy with a 4-door car, and he says this is an exact replica of the car that JFK was riding in when he was shot and killed. I mean, you know, so it's on and on and on and on. There's a bunch of weird ones. One that no one has ever brought up except me is I have mourned the loss of my beloved friend. She was my childhood friend, Doris Day, America's sweetheart. She was a very famous woman, and she acted with her best friend, the very, very gay in real life, Rock Hudson, but they were sweethearts on screen many, many times. Well, I mourned the loss of her many times, and she just died this year. So, wait, what? Why does this keep happening? Nobody really knows for sure. Some people believe that on December 21st, 2012, that there was a world apocalypse and that we were secretly somehow whisked away to a brand new planet. And you can go and find this on YouTube. There's a lot of posters where, okay, there's a poster of the galaxy in which we find ourselves. When I grew up, there was a little star to the left of the poster that had a picture of our sun, and it was circled and it said, "You are here." Well, guess what, guys? Now we're somewhere towards the right hand of the center, and we're in a whole nother galaxy, and it says "You are here." And that's supposedly the poster the way it always was. But you could find both posters online, and it's like, wait a minute, this is weird. Where the hell are we in the world or universe or galaxy? And why suddenly do we have an extra rib? Why suddenly is the heart in the center of our chest when I recall it being slightly to the left? And on it goes. A lot of human anatomy things, and I used to tutor human anatomy, not only on actual skeletons, but also on corpses, actual people. I used to tutor human anatomy. I know this stuff, right? So there's a lot of crazy Mandela effects that have come out that, I mean, you could get lost and go down the damn rabbit hole for like the next 6 months looking this crap up every freaking day. It is that extensive. How come half of the people remember it one way, half of the people remember it another way? Like the movie Shazam. There was a movie when I was a kid, but apparently it's a movie that never frickin' happened. It didn't happen the year I remember it in the 80s. It happened in the 90s. It wasn't called Shazam. It was called something else with somebody other than the guy that we all remember playing it, which is Sinbad. Played Shazam. It was a really cheesy movie. Not really the end of his career, but pretty close. It was a really cheesy movie. But everybody loved Sinbad, so we all wanted to go see it. I never saw it, but my sister and I talked about it. There was a giant life-size poster. I took a picture of it with my sister when we were little, or when I was like in junior high. And it was at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California. I remember sitting next to that poster and just going, man, Sinbad is such a good-looking man. You know, I had a big crush on him when I was a kid. And he was funny as hell. Any man that could make me laugh, that's a man I'm probably going to fall in love with. Anyway, so here tonight we're going to go over 20 brand new Mandela effects. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you a couple seconds to try to remember how you remember it versus what the actual reality of it is now. Now, I got these from All Time or All Time Scary, but you could look this up on YouTube. The channel is called All Time, and it's literally the All Time Scary by Alvin Schwartz, okay? So here are the Mandela effects that he's come up with in the past 2 months. Number 1, in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy wears her magical shoes that are ruby red slippers. Do you remember her shoes? And they were sequins and ruby red and gorgeous as all get out. Do you remember if her red shoes had bows on them or no bows? I want you to think about it, get a good visual image in your mind. Did they have bows or not? I'm going to tell you what it is now. I remember it with bows. I mean, without bows. I remember no bows at all. They were like slippers with a little bit of a heel. But actually, they had bows. They had bows on them that stuck up a little bit above the shoe. Now, she was wearing a blue and a white gingham dress and a white blouse. And, of course, her socks matched her dress. Were they blue socks or were they white socks? Because when she donned the ruby red slippers, when the good witch Glenda took the slippers off of her sister, who was dead, and she put them on Dorothy's feet with her magic wand, do you remember those socks with those ruby red slippers? Were they white socks that were folded, or were they blue socks that were not folded? What do you remember? I remember them being white socks and they were folded. No. You go back and look at the movie poster now. Apparently they were blue socks and ruby red slippers, and oh my God, that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even match. What? That's the way it is now. I think as our timelines are collapsing, that could be what is causing these Mandela effects. All right, back to the Bible, baby. Book of Judges, Samson and Delilah. Now, Samson was a very strong man, and he was the strongest man in this town where they lived. And Delilah was told to get to know him and pretend that she was in love with them. The first original narcissistic, not a good woman was she. But she wanted to get to know Samson, and so she kept trying to guess at what his strength was, where it came from. And finally, he told her, it comes from my hair. He was known for his long, luxurious locks. And, well, in the middle of the night, in a fit of jealous rage, at her hand, she cut his hair. Or did she? Do you remember Delilah cutting Samson's hair in the story of the Bible? When he slept, she got scissors and cut his hair. Or did she get a servant to do the dirty deed for her? How do you remember it? I remember it that she cut his hair while he slept, naked by her side after they had made love. That's what I remember. And when he came back, angry after his hair grew back a few months later, or whatever, maybe 6 months, I don't know. But when his hair grew all the way back and he gained his strength again, he wanted to take revenge. So he took his anger out on her and he went into her house and he knocked the pillars over and the roof caved in and killed everybody there, including Delilah. Or was she not even in the building and never mentioned again? So it wasn't really a story of revenge, except for the fact that he destroyed her house and she wasn't even home. How do you remember it? Because guess what? In the Bible it says she was never mentioned again. She wasn't even in the house when it happened. And I remember it that she was there and he exacted his revenge. How dare you cut my hair? I mean, sounds like they're kind of made for her. She's the first narcissist. He's the first, hot-headed, violent, wife-beater type dude. I mean, sounds like they deserve each other to me. But it's weird that it's one way that we remember it, and yet right now you look it up in the Bible, and this is the way it is right now. Creepy, creepy stuff. Outcast. This is one that had me scratching my head until I saw the video. Sorry, Miss Jackson. Remember that one? Never meant to make your daughter cry. I apologize. How many times? What, fill in the blank? Do you remember 1,000 times? Do you remember 1,000,000 times? Or 1,000,000,000,000 times? Do you remember this song? When I was on his channel, he said he researches the heck out of this stuff, but he went to all the lyrics pages, and in all the lyrics pages, they all say 1,000 times. I apologize 1,000 times. But guess what? I went to the video on YouTube from Outcast Vivo, and I subscribed because I like their music, and I love this video. I have seen it many times, and my son and I have sang this with each other 1,000,000,000,000 times, because in reality it is 1,000,000,000,000 times, but half the people are arguing that no, it's 1,000 times. Sorry, Miss Jackson, I am for real. Never meant to make your daughter cry. I apologize 1,000,000,000,000 times. It's 1,000,000,000,000 times. And it's one of the best music videos on the planet. Go see it. It is so cute. These cats are like dancing and jamming, and he's getting holes in his roof, and he's up on his roof on his farm fixing it, and he's carrying his puppies around trying to make sure they don't get wet. It is so adorable. He has all these animals on his farm. He has an owl in the house, and the owl is going hoo in the background. It's an adorable video. You've got to see it if you haven't seen it already. So he says it's 1,000 times for all of his research, but in my research it's 1,000,000,000 times. So see, there it is right there. I listened to the video. I listened to it twice with my son today, and we shut up. We sang the whole time except for that phrase, and every single time it said 1,000,000,000 times. Not even 1,000 during part of the song. No. So Randy Jackson in American Idol. This one might upset you. Did you guys ever watch the early years of American Idol? Do you remember when Randy Jackson would shake his head and say, that's going to be a no, dog? Well, guess what? Never, ever, ever did he ever say, that's going to be a no, dog. Never. Never. There have been memes all over the internet, flying all over the internet, because everybody remembers that he says, that's going to be a no, dog. And yet he never, ever uttered those words once. All right, so Sorry, I had to drink my tea there. I have this tea. It's fabulous. Cherry and strawberry tea. Oh my God, I love it. It's not even herbal tea. It's just fruit tea. It's so good. No sugar, just straight keto-friendly tea. Okay, so now Disney movies. We're going to really get into it. In the Jungle Book, that is a Disney movie from 1967. It was created a year before I was born, but I did go to see it in the theater when they re-released it. That's what I remember anyway. And Baloo is singing a song called The Bare Necessities. Remember the Bare Necessities? In the lyrics, I want you guys to fill in the blank, okay? Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be blank of my big home. Is it found or fonder? What makes sense? I couldn't be fonder of my big home makes the most sense, right? That's what I remember. But guess what? He said I couldn't be found of my big home. A, it doesn't make sense. But B, go and watch the damn movie. It says found. What? I don't know. It's just I have nothing. I have nowhere to go with this. Moving on to the next one. In the Sword in the Stone. Name of the movie. 1963 Disney. Sword in the Stone. Nobody but Arthur, King Arthur, could remove the sword from the what? Did he remove the sword from the stone? Or did he remove the sword from an anvil that was on top of a stone? What the hell is going on with this Mandela effect? Obviously, it's a stone. It's called The Sword in the Stone. It's the whole name of the damn movie. Oh, but no, go watch it, guys. It's an anvil on top of the stone. Let me take it one step further beyond where he took it. Go to Disneyland in California, in Anaheim, and guess what, guys? I am telling you, this is so freaking weird. This is so freaky because they do have a little tiny monument outside of one of the castles. I don't know if it's Sleeping Beauty's castle or there's another little castle on the Disneyland grounds. It's like 6 acres worth of rides and stuff. There's one teeny tiny section that's the sword in a stone, and there's a little plaque talking about the sword in the stone animation, and you have to try to pull the sword from the stone. And of course you can't because you're not King Arthur, but you start to hear the music when you move the sword. You'll hear the music from that old animation, but it's in a damn stone. So why, when you look at the movie now, is it in an anvil? What the heck is going on with this? Creepy stuff, right? Okay. Aladdin. Da 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 da. 1992, Aladdin was made, and they were in a mythical land called Agrabah. And this is very, very much like the very, very famous stories, The Thief of Baghdad, which Baghdad is it's Iraq, right? Or Iran? In the Middle East, though, right? And also 1001 Arabian Nights, and their culture in the movie, they're very, very Arab, aren't they? Are they? I mean, all of the stories of flying rugs come from the Arab world. Some of the highest quality, finest rugs in the whole damn world come from frickin' Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Northern Africa, and in the Middle East. Egypt. So where is Agrabah supposedly set? Do you think it's set in Egypt, Iraq, China, Zimbabwe? Where is it set? The original story, as it was created for Disney, now apparently was based from a story originally coming from China. Sorry, Mulan is Chinese. Aladdin is not. Even the name Aladdin is an Arabic name. Al is the first article of everyone's name in Saudi Arabia. Al-Adin. That does not sound Chinese to me, guys. What the hell is going on with this Mandela effect? I'm like, what? Oh my God. That makes zero sense. In fact, I kind of remember them saying the words Allah and Alhamdulillah, but I could be wrong with this. I would have to go back and actually watch the movie. And I think when I get done, I loved that movie, so maybe I'll have to. I mean, her name is Jasmine. Sure, jasmine tea comes from China, but Jasmine, it means beautiful one in Arabic. Why? When you look into the Disney thing now, it comes from an old tale from China. What? Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Oh my God. The evil queen. The evil, narcissistic, horrible, evil person queen. She looks into the mirror and what does she say? What do you remember? Magic mirror on the wall, who is fairest one of all? Or, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all? Which one do you remember? I'm going to tell you right now. It's magic mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all? Magic mirror. Even Disney gets this one wrong because in many of their toys and things that you buy in the Disney store will say mirror, mirror on the wall, not magic mirror on the wall. That is an absolute Mandela effect, and that freaks me out because I remember it being mirror, mirror on the wall. So, I mean, even Disney's misquoting themselves. Why? Because half the people remember it one way. Half the people remember it the other way. So freaky. All right, do you guys remember the blue logo in all of the Walt Disney pictures? Do you remember that the eye is not dotted and Tinkerbell flies across the screen and with her magic wand, she draws a line, the line that goes around the top part of the logo. And she goes to dot the I, and her wand is stuck, and she gets mad, and she shakes it, and pixie dust flies everywhere, and she touches the I, and then there's a magical sound, and the I is dotted. And then she gets self-satisfied with herself, and she flies to the side of the logo, and she puts her hands on her hips, satisfied, and she goes, do you remember that? It never happened. It's nowhere to be found. No one can find this anywhere. And people have looked for hundreds of hours on movies and shows. And where the hell did that? How can we all remember Tinkerbell doing that? And now she's not even there. Tinkerbell from Peter Pan. Why? She's not even there now. Like, what the heck is going on? She's frustrated because she taps the eye and nothing happens, and she shakes her wand. The pixie dust comes out in every direction. Do you guys remember this? Now, even in the original TV show, that was every single Sunday, I sat on my grandpappy's lap and we watched this together. We watched the wonderful world of Disney, and Tinkerbell flies over the Magic Kingdom, sprinkling her fairy dust all over all of Disneyland, and lands at the castle. I think it's Sleeping Beauty's castle. And there's no footage of that either. What the hell is happening? I do believe in fairies. I do. I want Tinkerbell back. Sure, she's a little bit angry, but that's because she's so small. She can only harbor one emotion at a time. I remember what Barry wrote about her. Crazy, right? Do you guys remember it with Tinkerbell or not? I used to have a coffee mug that had Tinkerbell on it. I'm a big Tinkerbell fan. It was even my favorite colors. It was green and turquoise. Ugh, lost it in storage. I'll go get it. I'll go to Disneyland and get another one when I go to California next time. But oh my God, Tinkerbell. What happened to Tinkerbell? Something is horribly awry. All right, guys. So here we go. Now we're going to get off the Disney topic, and we're going to go to, well, what year? What year did this happen? How many of you remember growing up with the food pyramid poster? What to eat and how much? Remember how bread products and grains are at the bottom? It was put out by the dairy and the meat and the grain people. All the lobbyists got the government to agree that this is how people need to eat. Vegetables are somewhere in the middle. And I remember this in grade school. They taught us in grade school in the 1970s. I know I'm dating myself, but this is important. I remember in the 1970s, the food pyramid poster came out. They revitalized it again in the 80s, changed a couple things around. I think they said instead of like all grains, just like whole grains or something in the 80s. But do you remember it coming out later? When you look it up, the government has no knowledge of it coming out at all, except in the year 1992. Sorry, I remember seeing the food pyramid poster when I was in grade school. It did not come out when I was in college. They're saying it came out 20 years after it did. From my memory, it came out in the 70s. Like around 1972, probably. Like when I was in maybe third, fourth grade, I remember taking notice of it. And they taught us about the food pyramid. I had to draw little loaves of bread on a damn pyramid to prove I knew it. They wanted to indoctrinate us with what the food lobbyists wanted us to eat and how, and what to tell our moms and dads. Oh, school is so evil. It's so evil. I took my kids out of school as soon as my husband died. I said, that's it. Y'all don't have to go to school anymore. You're going to homeschool with mommy because guess what? I bought them computers and I put them in the top-notch homeschool over the internet in the United States. I was like, hell no. You're not going to be bullied at school and we're not going to be threatened. You know, I couldn't do that. But even my kids, my kids are born past the year 2000. So, they had the food pyramid guide, but now it's vegetables all at the bottom because it's actually what's healthy. But that one had me scratching my head. Okay, let's get back to the Jungle Book. We'll go back to Disney for a minute. Why not? In the Jungle Book, the animation made in 1967 by Walt Disney Studios, there is a scene where Mowgli and Baloo do a little song and dance number because Mowgli was about to give fire to King Louie. Okay? What do you remember Baloo, who was the bear, what was he wearing? What was he wearing? Did he have a coconut beak on his nose and a yellow grass skirt? Or did he have a coconut bra and a green grass skirt while he's playing the ukulele and singing and dancing? Because what I remember is not only did he have a coconut bra and a green grass skirt, I remember him wearing a straw hat and a Hawaiian shirt that was unbuttoned and flapping in the breeze to the sides while he played the ukulele that was being held on his tummy so that he could show off his coconut bra, which was hilarious. Do you guys remember him with a coconut bra or like a coconut on the end of his nose? That's insane. Why would he He already has a big nose. Why make it? I don't understand what's happening there. Well, how do you guys remember it? Because if you go watch a movie now, he's got a coconut beak and a yellow grass skirt. What the flock is happening? All right, here's another fun one. In 1975, I Love Rock and Roll was the name of a song that came out by a band called The Arrows. When they sang it, they said, I saw her, because it was a song about a woman. Well, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, Joan Jett came out and she sang it again in 1982. Now this song, my little brother and I, we recorded America's Top 40 by Casey Kasem. Every week we recorded this. We bought cassette tapes. Yeah, we went all the way into town, 20 miles to one city away where they actually had cassette tapes. And we would buy them. We would ask, with our allowance, could we buy the cassette tapes so that we could record Casey Kasem's Top 40, America's Top 40. And every week we would memorize the songs. We would rewind and play it again and rewind and play it again until we knew every word to every freaking song. I had notebooks filled with the lyrics of all the songs. No one had a computer. No one had Google or the internet back then. We did it old school, baby. We did it old school in the 80s. My little brother and I knew that every single time when we were going to go to the roller rink and we were going to sing this song because we were cool and we knew the words because we recorded it and listened to it a million times. We knew that this is what it said. I saw him standing there by the wrecking machine. Remember that? I love rock and roll, put another dime in the jukebox, baby. Remember that song? Okay, I'm not a good singer, but I know you know the song. The actual lyrics are this, and I went to Joan Jett and the Blackhearts' original video today. And it says, I saw him dancing there by the record machine. He was always standing there when I knew the song. I saw him standing there by the record machine. I never heard her say, I saw him dancing there by the record machine. And yet it's in the video, dancing there. Weird, right? It's so weird. Okay, now this is another really freaky one. If you live in North America, what does the average North American deer look like? Deer. Do they have a little short, stubby tail about 3 or 4 inches long? They kind of twist, it kind of twitches back and forth. And it's got some white fluffiness right underneath, but it's maybe about 3 or 4 inches, no more than 5 inches long. Well, guess what? Go start looking at pictures of deer, guys, because suddenly their tails are 14 freaking inches long and they're really, really, really fluffy and really long and hang down a long fucking way. I'm sorry, a long freaking way. I mean, I'm looking at this going, oh my God, this isn't how is the Mandela effect so freaky in this one that an animal has changed. A body part on an animal has changed. I saw these pictures. I'm like, nothing about these pictures look normal or right. How is some of the fluffy white fur on top of the tail now? What the heck is going on at this Mandela effect? Go look at pictures of deer, North American deer. What the heck? They changed. They don't look what they used to. I lived in the forest for 10 years. I had deer in my yard many times a month for 10 years. I spent hours drinking coffee on my deck looking at my deer. I saw them fighting and playing and frolicking and eating my grass and giving birth. I watched the deer in my yard. They did not have 14-inch long tails. Dude, no, they did not. Their little tails were no more than 4 or 5 inches, and they were short and little, and they had a little bit of fluff at the end sometimes. Not even every time. Usually their tail's blended in. It looks like they didn't have a tail most times. Mm-mm. No. Now they have 14-inch tails. They grow up to 14 inches. No. Yeah, scientists will say, oh yeah, no, they've got long tails. And they grow up to 14 inches. That's more than a foot long. That makes no sense. Makes no sense to me. Well, how do you guys remember it? Remember Ice Cube? In 2008, it was mentioned this song, the highest charted ever during the course of his career, and people don't know what the name of the song is. Was it Was a Good Day? Or Today Was a Good Day? What's the name of the song? This is a song that was, I believe, made in 1992. I used to work in CRIP territory in LA. I was a child care counselor, and my job was to keep the kids of the Gay and Lesbian Adolescent Social Services, the Glass House. I was supposed to keep them in line, make sure they're not doing drugs, make sure they're not in gangs. But every time we watched MTV with the rap, every single time Ice Cube came on, we would turn up the music, we would blast it, and everyone would do their work around the house. And when this song came on, we all ran to the TV and we're like, taking a break now because it's Ice Cube. And we loved this song because today was a good day. They lived in the hood, really straight up dangerous neighborhood. I almost got shot through the heart when bullets ripped through that house one day. So I remember this. I remember this song and I remember this music. And for me, the name of the song was Today Was a Good Day. But no. You go to Ice Cube's Vivo, his channel, his original video. The name of the song is It Was a Good Day. It's so weird. That's not how I remember it. Not at all. And yet, well, there it is. Now, this one goes way back. Way back. Charles Lindbergh. He was the first solo flight. He's the first man to attempt to do a solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean. His first transatlantic flight, 3,600 miles, by himself as the only pilot. It took him 33 and a half hours to go, and he broke the record. He was the first person to ever do this. That made him famous. He lived in East Amwell, New Jersey, and he was extremely famous. He had a little baby named Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr. And when Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr. was 20 months old, the crime of the century was committed because this little baby was kidnapped. God bless his soul. He was kidnapped on March 1st, 1932, and it was a huge deal because of how high profile this man had been for breaking this record, doing something that no one else on earth had done. And Herbert Hoover, the president at the time, was contacted the very next day after the kidnapping took place, and they literally called it the crime of the century. It was horrifying that this little baby was kidnapped from his second or third story window. It was really weird. It was like there's no way in hell anyone could get in or out, and yet someone did kidnap the baby. Now, what do you guys remember about this story if you heard it? Was he found, or was he never found and became one of the biggest mysteries of all time? No one actually ever knows what happened to him. How do you remember the story? Because I remember hearing something about it. The Lindbergh baby was kidnapped and never found again. And then I saw a fictional movie that someone wrote where they kind of were trying to figure out who the kid's kidnapper was. But when you look it up, there's evidence that he was found, this baby was found 2 months after he was kidnapped, and unfortunately he had died. So he was found but not alive. And there was evidence that his kidnapper was caught and prosecuted and went to jail and got the electric chair. He was sentenced to death for what he had done. But who was his kidnapper, and how come it's like impossible to find information on that? So which one is it? Supposedly he was found but dead. But I remember that he was never found as a big mystery. That he could be alive, living somewhere else under a different name and not remembering who he was, right? That's how I remembered it. But apparently, according at least to this channel on YouTube, and this guy does for the most part, he does do his homework pretty well. And I've looked into his stuff, and most of his stuff is right on. So he says that it actually, the kid was found. I remember they wasn't. There was like a scribbled handwritten note left back in the crib. It was like crudely written. It was like a big, big, big deal. This is another weird one. This is a medical one. So I remember looking in books. There was a book called Freaks that my cousin and I used to look at. And one of the freaks in the book was just a man in Africa who had been bitten by a mosquito on his testicles. His testicles were so big from a disease that occurs from the disease that's caused by the mosquito that's infected. And I remember it being called elephantitis of the nuts. Elephantitis of the testicles, basically. My dad had further a different book. He had a book of medical. He had all medical journals because my dad was a nurse in the Navy. And so he had to study medicine. And so when he wasn't home, I'd sneak into his office and look through his medical books because it was super interesting to me. I always wanted to learn. I always had a thirsty mind. And I quenched that thirst by reading my dad's books. Well, I remember reading elephantitis and showing my brother, and I said, if you're not careful, this is going to happen to you. You can't run around the house naked. This is going to happen. I scared the hell out of my brother with it. Like any good big sister would, as opposed to saying, it's not polite to run around naked in society. I said a mosquito might bite you in the nuts and it's going to happen to you. Elephantitis of the nuts. Apparently the name of the disease now is elephantiasis. Elephantiasis. Tiasis. Instead of elephantitis, it's elephantiasis. No. That's not how I remember it. I remember opening the book and showing it to my brother and terrorizing him with it. Like, every time he'd run around the house naked, I'm like, you can't do that because look what can happen. Never mind that it happens, like, I think in Africa from a mosquito bite because of a disease that's there. I think in the Congo or something. I don't know. I think it's Africa. Could be here in South America, for all I know. But it's one of these diseases that I think they can cure now, but they couldn't cure back then. And so all these old black and white photos of elephantitis, now it's elephantiasis. What the heck? Now here's a really freaky one. You guys ever hear of Apple computers? Of course you have. And what's the kind of Apple they named the Apple computer after? Is it a Macintosh? Macintosh? Or is it Macintosh? Mcintosh? Oh, well, which one do you remember? Is it Macintosh? I remember it being a Macintosh, like a good old-fashioned Scottish name, Mac. Mick, I think, is Irish. Well, apparently when you look it up, it's Macintosh without the A. But how is that? How is Macintosh computers based on the Apple with an A? How can a computer company get this wrong? Why is it called a Macintosh Apple now? Especially when the person who bred this apple into existence is named John Macintosh. Why would this guy misspell his own name when he named the apple after him? Obviously, he would not. And yet half the people remember it being Macintosh. Half the people remember it being Macintosh. The history still stands that it's John Macintosh who brought this apple into existence, on which Apple Computers is completely named. But when you look it up, it's now Macintosh. And there's plenty of evidence for both. There's a lot of grocery store ads where it says Macintosh or Macintosh. You can just go search Google Images. It is that way. Really, really, really freaky stuff. Now, this one's strange. It's about the human body. Can humans regrow missing or broken ribs? Yes or no? Can we? Can we regrow missing or broken ribs? Yes or no? Apparently the answer is yes. We can regrow missing ribs or broken ribs. Apparently now. Now, I know that when you do break a bone, it does mend, and it takes a long time. It doesn't regrow exactly the way it used to be. It grows like kind of a ball, like a mass bone ball around the break, and you end up with a giant lump on the bone. I know, I've broken a couple bones in my leg. My son has broken his arm. I know this stuff, right? But ribs, I mean, I've broken ribs and they've grown back, okay. But apparently if you take out in surgery a bone, it can grow back like a frickin' starfish now. I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? So there was a case in which a man had 1 centimeter of cartilage and 8 centimeters of bone removed in his body. I don't know why, maybe cancer or something. And it grew back 100%. Grew back healthy, grew back normal. Did you know that can happen? I sure didn't. All right, this is the 20th one. This is the 20th Mandela effect of the evening, and this is the last one. And this is actually, okay, I knew a family who knew Al Capone. And this woman that I went to modeling school with, her parents, when they were young and they were, oldish teenagers, and they were madly in love and they got married very young, Al Capone came to their wedding, gave them $10,000 because the woman's father worked for Al Capone. He was found dead in an alley a couple years later. Not going to talk about that. We can't say Al Capone did it. We don't know who did it, but hey, he was a crime lord. He calls himself a businessman, just like pirates call themselves captains. But he was running the mob, the Italian mafia in Chicago. He was the boss. He was a very generous man in some ways. I also met a hoofer. I met a dancer. When I met her, she was, oh my God, she was in her 90s and she was adorable as hell. She had her hair up in a little bun and she had her lipstick on. It was all crooked and because her hands were shaking. Super adorable. So adorable, this woman. And she was a dancer in Chicago, and she would dance on stage, and he would show up to the club every night. And every night he would buy her dinner and buy her drinks. And he started giving her money and paid for her apartment. And they became lovers. And she told me this story standing in the middle of Costco in Chico, California. And she said, I didn't know anything back then. I didn't know who he really was. And not until they caught him and put him in jail. And she said, I was so sad to find out that he actually was a mafia boss, because to me, he was just my Al. And I was mad for him. I was madly in love with him, and he loved me. And I never even said goodbye. I had to move to try to make it in California. She wanted to be a dancer in Los Angeles. She wanted to be in the movies. She got out just in time of Chicago, and then a couple years later, he was arrested. But now, what do you guys remember about him? Let's see. Have you ever heard the movie Scarface? That was a movie about his life, about Al Capone. He was convicted in, 1931. He was convicted to 11 years in prison. Okay. This was during the Prohibition era, and he was trafficking, hooch. He was providing alcohol. And this is back in the days during the speakeasies. Everyone had a club. And then they had the secret parts of the club where they can go and drink. Because during Prohibition in the United States, you weren't allowed to drink alcohol. During Prohibition, my family became very wealthy. In the South. There were stories about my cousin's granny sitting on the porch falling asleep with a shotgun in her lap. And when her husband came home, she just darn near shot him. She took her gun and immediately reacted and shot towards his way, thinking it was the police. That's part of my sordid history. But hey, when other kids down in Arkansas were going barefoot and poor, my family never did. They were resourceful and they made damn good hooch. That's the story in my family. So Prohibition was a big deal. In fact, in my adopted family, Carrie Nation was the great aunt of my Uncle Dick Nation. I know, funny name, right? But lovely man. And none of the Nation family that I knew, they were not proud at all of this. They were like, dude, this is not at all cool. She would go around during Prohibition. She'd find bars that were still serving alcohol, and she would smash them up with a axe. So, my family had a lot of Prohibition-related, crime. Anyway, Al Capone, he died of syphilis. And when he died of syphilis, his brain was like a 12-year-old child. He was not coherent more than like a little kid when he died, because it was left untreated while he was in prison for 8 years. He was sentenced for 11, but he got out on parole in 8 years. And he died in his home in Florida. Or did he die in prison on the island of Alcatraz outside of San Francisco? Because that's where he was in prison. He was moved from Chicago to the federal prison in Alcatraz. Now, I remember that he died in prison, kind of. I don't totally remember the stories of him, really. I just kind of remember in passing, oh yeah, he died in prison of syphilis that was untreated, and that's really sad. But apparently, now when you look at it, he died in his home in Florida. I've seen pictures of him with his grandbabies on his lap. Living life, living the dream. And you know what? He went to he should have gone to jail for bootlegging, which is bringing in the hooch, or money laundering, or murder, tax evasion. That's how. He was robbery, murder. He did it all. extortion, blackmail, all that crap he did. But he was in jail for tax evasion. That's how they got him on a lesser crime. They put him away for only 8 years. He got out. He was paroled out for good behavior. And he was this famous crime syndicate boss, but everyone remembers him dying in prison. It was such a sad thing, right? Even though he's not a good person. But, hey. Well, boys will be boys. I'm just kidding. No excuses, honestly. But so after 8 years, he was paroled in 1939. And he lived the rest of his life out in his mansion in Palm Island, Florida, with his wife and his grandchildren running around. And he even lived 8 more years after that. And syphilis that he had caused a stroke, but then he still was alive for 1 more year after that. And then he died of cardiac arrest in Florida. Bizarre, right? I did not know that part of the story. Never heard that part of the story, not at all. Weird, right? All right. And by the way, he's also my really dear friend's cousin. So I have 3 connections to Al Capone. I mean, direct connections, people that knew him. Bizarre stuff. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that, guys. I love you very much. Thank you for being on this ascension journey with me and enjoying the weird crap that happens in this world as a result of our timeline hopping and world hopping and parallel dimensions collapsing, and God knows why we have these weird Mandela effects. But it's really fun and it's wild and wonderful, and I hope you've had a good Freaky Friday and happy full harvest moon and happy Friday the 13th. I'm signing off, baby, with peace and love and joy and the high vibes of the holy 5th dimension. Till next time, peace. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you.